Does an e-commerce store need to register in all 50 states? Let's take a look at the details here. What if my LLC is registered in New York State with a registered agent in that state? This LLC serves as an online e-commerce Shopify store. Do I need a registered agent in all 50 states? Shopify stores like Fashion Nova, Gymshark, Kith, Allbirds, etc. Do they have nationwide registered agents? Well, Billy, thanks for this question. There are a couple considerations here. First, if you are selling to people, you have an opportunity to have a contract in place for those transactions. In that contract, you can specify that if there is a lawsuit, then you need to be exclusively in your jurisdiction. That way, anyone who enters into a contract with you has to file in that jurisdiction. And if they don't, they've breached the contract. The second thing you can do is have an arbitration provision that requires that the legal action against you be filed in arbitration in your jurisdiction or in your venue. So these are two separate provisions that can force you to find out about a lawsuit in your state because it forces them to bring that legal action in your state. In most states, but not all, an exclusive venue provision is enforceable, which means if you say in the contract, the only way to sue either party is to start a lawsuit in New York, that's enforceable in most states, but not all. One state that will enforce them is Minnesota. But when I first graduated from law school, Minnesota would not honor an exclusive venue provision. So it is decided state by state. That's where the arbitration clause comes in. The Federal Arbitration Act trumps all state law. And it says if there is an arbitration provision, it shall be followed. And so if you really want to make sure that a dispute must be filed in your state, then an arbitration provision is the safest way to do that. That's one way of getting around, practically speaking, having a registration in every state. But technically, you still are required to have a registration in every state, and that requires having a registered agent in those states. You can pay a service to have a registered agent in all states, but I understand it costs a lot of money, and a lot of small businesses, especially Etsy businesses or Shopify businesses, may not have the money to pay each year to a registered agent service. And practically speaking, if you get sued so rarely, it may not be worth the expense. You'd rather just have the risk of not being registered in those states. What's the consequence of not being registered in every state? Well, you might not find out about a lawsuit in that state. Now, if you have a provision in the contract that requires them to file a lawsuit in your state or requires them to file an arbitration in your state, then they're supposed to do that. But let's say hypothetically they don't. And then all of a sudden, in a lawsuit from another state you don't know about comes up, you lose it because you didn't know about it, and now there is a judgment on file in that state against you. That can then be transferred or docketed to your local state, and they can then garnish and ultimately levy your bank funds. So that is a risk. It's more of a risk with bigger companies. Now, what do you do with that? If that happened, and I've had clients where that has happened, what we need to do is find a licensed attorney in the state where the lawsuit occurred, and then file a motion to undo the judgment that's there. And there are typically two requirements for that. First, you have substantive defenses that were not raised. So, for example, the arbitration provision would be an important one, and then some others. And then second, you need to have acted promptly once you heard about the lawsuit. So it is possible to get those undone. Practically speaking, here's what most business owners do. they register in the state where they operate. And if they have the guidance of an attorney, they have an exclusive venue provision in all transaction contracts. So like a purchase agreement. Second, they have a arbitration provision in those contracts. And then third, they accept the risk that there might be lawsuits in other states that they may not know about, but they don't want to pay the money to register in all those states, and they don't want to pay the money to maintain a registered agent in all of those states, which means essentially an address at an office or co-working space or law firm where lawsuit papers can physically be handed to somebody. Once you get to a certain size, it makes sense to do that. Once you have a physical location in a state, it certainly makes sense to do that. But practically speaking, that's what a lot of business owners do, even though technically it's not lawful to operate in a state, including making sales in that state, without actually being registered to do business as a foreign entity in that state. All right, if you find these videos helpful and you're interested in little short videos, little snippets, some of the best excerpts from the videos that we've produced, you can find those by searching for Aaron Hall Attorney on TikTok, on Instagram, and various other social media platforms. So feel free to follow us there, especially if you are interested in that short form content, which is some of the best little snippets of legal questions presented by business owners. I'm Aaron Hall, an attorney for business owners and entrepreneurs. If you would like to get more videos like this, feel free to follow this channel by subscribing. And I encourage everybody to subscribe at aaronhall.com/free. That's where you can get some exclusive videos helping business owners avoid common and expensive legal problems and help grow your company so you achieve success in your company and hopefully as well in your life. Thanks for joining me here today.